everybody, this is Lian from Atlas. I wanted to go over a few things about shoes. We've had some questions about, well, what kind of shoe should I look for, and how do I know if a shoe is going to be comfortable and fit me well? So I wanted to show you a couple of different things. So the first thing is, it's really important that you know what your own foot is like. You know, everybody's body comes in different sizes and shapes, and so you need to know what kind of defines your foot, and so you can figure out what type of things you really need to look for when you're shoe shopping. So the big important things, obviously your shoe size, making sure that you have the correct length of the shoe, and I think everybody is kind of like, they know their general ballpark, what size shoe they wear, but you also need to know if you have a particularly wide foot, or if you have a part of your foot that's wider than the others, you know, if you have a wider toe box that you need, or if you have a really skinny heel. And all of those things are going to be really important when you're looking for a good shoe that fits, because you want it to fit the whole foot instead of just one particular aspect of it. You want to know if you pronate or supinate, which means that if your ankles are kind of collapsed in and point inwards, or if you kind of walk more on the outside of your foot, because there are shoes that are designed to fit, you know, each and every type of foot out there. You need to know if one foot is bigger than the other. This is actually a pretty common thing where somebody has, you know, a shoe that's a half a size bigger on one foot. So making sure that you know that. There are places that will sell you single shoes. So if that's something that applies to you, you might want to do some research and find a shoe store that will sell you singles instead of selling you two pairs that you can't wear half of. If you've had like a previous injury before, and so you need to know if you have, you know, an orthotic that you need to fit in your shoe or something along those lines as well. The other big thing is that there are different types of shoes, and each one kind of has a specific purpose. So, you know, there's walking shoes, there's running shoes, hiking shoes, cross-training shoes, and so you really want to figure out kind of what you're planning on doing, and that way you can find a shoe that's going to fit that the best. And you might need to have multiple pairs of shoes. A pair for walking, a pair for cross-training, a pair for, you know, hiking, because all of those things are going to be a little bit different. Hiking shoes are going to have a little different tread, they're going to have a little bit more grip. Walking and running shoes are going to have a little bit more flex, they're going to be a little bit more supportive and cushioning. And a cross-training shoe is usually going to be kind of either raised at the heel or a flat shoe, so that you have the mobility that you need to do your exercises. I think the other big thing that I want to point out is if your job here at Community Transit requires you to wear steel-toed shoes, I would highly recommend that you have another pair of shoes that you wear into work. You change into your steel-toeds, and then at the end of your shift, you change out of those as soon as you can. Steel-toed shoes are really, really hard on the feet. They're usually exceptionally stiff, you know, to give you that added protection that's needed for your job. But that's really hard on the foot. Feet are, you know, kind of very mobile areas of your body, and if they're really stiff all day, that's going to cause some injuries over the long run. So as soon as you can get out of your steel-toeds, and as long as you can wait to get into them at the beginning of the day, it's going to make a big difference for you. So I'd highly recommend that you change into them when you get here and change out of them before you go home, especially if you're going to be running errands before or after work and you're doing a lot of walking around. All of that's going to eventually kind of add up on those feet. So there are a few different types of shoes. Obviously, we talked about, you know, the intended purposes of what the shoes are for, but there's also different shoe types. So the big ones, I would say, are stability shoes, which are going to have a little bit more support under the arches generally. They're going to be a little bit stiffer, and they're kind of designed to correct dysfunctions when it comes to that pronation that happens in a lot of people's feet. There's cushion shoes, so those are going to be shoes that are really soft and cushiony. They're good for higher impact activities, so that you're going to take a little bit of stress off the joints. And then I'd say the third big classification for shoe is a barefoot or a minimalist shoe. So those are going to be very flat. They don't have a lot of cushion or support in them. And the idea with those is that they're very similar to kind of how people have used shoes, you know, for centuries and millennium up to this point. If you decide you want to try out barefoot shoes, I would definitely make sure that you go get fitted, and that you really take some time to break those in, because it's a big change from the normal everyday shoe that most people are wearing. So things that you want to look for, you obviously want to make sure that you have a shoe that fits you well. That's going to be the biggest thing. If your shoe doesn't fit you well, if it pinches or rubs somewhere, that's going to cause you discomfort. And you know, if you have a big blister, you're going to start to walk differently, and that can cause other injuries kind of further up your chain when you're walking. You want them to be flexible, so if you take a shoe and you try and bend the toe back towards the heel, it should be flexible, but it shouldn't just kind of collapse all the way in half really easily. So it should have a little bit of give to it, and you should be able to fold it back because that's what the toe naturally does, is kind of push off. But it shouldn't just kind of collapse all the way in half super, super easy. It should have kind of a spring motion to it when you bend it back. If you're gonna be doing a lot of standing or walking, especially on hard surfaces, you want something that has a little bit more cushion and generally has a little bit of arch support and not kind of like a flat shoe like a Van or something along those lines that don't have a lot of support or cushion in them. And then if you're walking on unstable surfaces or hiking, trail running, you may want to consider doing something that has a little bit higher ankle, which is going to give you a little bit extra support for those as well. So you go to a store, you get a shoe. How do you know if it's going to be the right shoe for you? Well, the first thing, try it on the store, have the salesperson help, kind of find you the right size, check the fit for you. But at the end of the day, you're the only person that knows how comfortable it is. And so I always recommend that, either A, walk around in the store for a while and see how it fits you, or B, when you get it home, most stores will let you walk around in your house as long as you don't go outside, and you can usually still return them at that point. So recommend that you wear them for 30 minutes to an hour at least, so that you really know if it fits you well before you take them out for your first exercise or outdoor activity. Make sure you try on both shoes. I know a lot of people will just slip one shoe on there yep, that fits, and then they're good. And you know what, there are some people who have super easy feet and that's totally fine for them. But if you've had issues finding a shoe that's comfortable for you, definitely want to recommend that you try both shoes on, because like I mentioned earlier, some people have feet that one's bigger than the other, and if you only try on one, you don't know if it really fits. Make sure that you try them on with socks that you would normally wear them with. So if you're going somewhere and you try on a pair of shoes, that you're planning on working out in, but you're wearing dress socks, that's not really the same fit that you would get. So make sure that you use the socks that you would like to wear with the shoe. And kind of see how it feels as you're walking around. If in your house doing some stuff, see if you notice any spots where it's rubbing or pinching, because all of those things, like I said, can definitely add up. And if it's not comfortable for you from the get-go, it's probably not the right shoe for you. And I promise there's one out there for you. So just keep trying them on. Some people have really difficult feet and it can get really frustrating, and they just get kind of annoyed and they just buy a shoe and they live with it. There is a shoe out there for everybody. You just got to keep looking. If you can't find something, please let us know here at Atlas. We'd be happy to help you find, and give you some suggestions, or good shoe stores that can help you find something that's going to fit right for you. But just make sure that it fits you from the get-go, because if it doesn't, it's not going to get better. There are some shoes that will stretch out and they'll give and they'll break in a little bit. But generally it should fit you and be comfortable from the beginning. And the other big thing is, if you get a new pair of shoes and they're substantially different than what you've been wearing, make sure you take the time to both break the shoe in as well as get your foot used to that new shoe. So I always recommend that if you're planning on using the shoe for working out, that you kind of phase it in like an hour a day extra each time until you get up to that total amount of time you're looking to wear it for, usually over a week or two, so that your foot is nice and used to it before you're running really far. If you have any questions, let us know, or drop your questions in the comments and we'll get back to you.